Red One is the latest attempt at starting a franchise from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which he stars in and produces via 7 Bucks Productions. And no, for anyone who is confused, doesn't know what this movie is, no, it has nothing to do with Red Notice. It does also star The Rock. It's also produced by him. It is another attempt at starting a franchise, but that was for a different streamer. That was Netflix, this is Amazon. Or it was Amazon, still technically is Amazon, but they're in theaters right now. And in this film, Santa Claus, played by J.K. Simmons, has been kidnapped by a Christmas witch, played by Kiernan Shipka. So now this militarized North Pole operation they got going on, led by his top bodyguard, top soldier, Callum Drift, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. They are looking for him. But in order to track him down, they need the help from the best tracker in the world, the country. I don't know if they said. The best tracker. His name is Jack O'Malley. He's played by Chris Evans, and he has something to do with the kidnapping of Santa, inadvertently. So they need his skills, but they're not, Callum and him, it seems like they're not going to get along. Their personalities are clashing. Let the buddy comedy fetch quest enemies to lovers arc begin. This movie's kind of coming out in a weird time, and you might be like, Jackson, mid-November is totally fine for a Christmas movie. If they want to build legs, this is a good strategy to do that. I don't mean as far as that goes. I just mean as far as like the careers of not only just Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but even Chris Evans. It's a weird time for the industry as well. Obviously, we just mentioned how it was originally going to be an Amazon Prime exclusive. Now they've kind of pivoted to being a theatrical release. I think a lot of people have grown very disillusioned by what streaming can do. I think more people in the know of the industry, at the very least, are a little disillusioned by what streaming has to offer. A lot of the times they will just dump something and it barely gets any publicity, which is not ideal, obviously. And as far as like back-end deals, like when something really hits off, you're not necessarily going to get that as much with streaming if you go to theaters. So just a lot of shifting tones as far as like how you get a movie out there. But going back to our 2 stars, I wanted to talk about Chris Evans really quickly so we can get him out of the way. His career post-Avengers Endgame, it looked pretty promising at first. Knives Out obviously is a great turn from him. And then you have Defending Jacob, an Apple Plus streaming show, a drama where he can really, dig his teeth into that. But then everything since then, and he's, had some fun cameos like in Don't Look Up and Free Guy, Deadpool and Wolverine. But everything else as far as him as a lead role, it's depressing, really bad Lightyear film that Pixar, I don't even know what they were thinking when they tried that. It's Ghosted, an Apple action film that is really generic. It was reteaming him and Ana de Armas. Nobody talks about it. Nobody's seen it, really. And for good reason. It's abysmal. The Gray Man, which was the Russos and him and Ryan Gosling, that one did not get well received. I didn't care for it either. He's also in another Netflix movie called Pain Hustlers. It's from director David Yates, co-stars him and Andy Garcia and Emily Blunt. And that one, it got buried because of the Netflix release model. Not many eyes were on it to begin with, so it was kind of just dropped in. Nobody wanted to pay any mind to it, especially because the reviews weren't great. So Red One unfortunately looked like just another bad choice from Chris Evans when we know he can do better and he's capable of so much more. The thing about Chris Evans, though, in contrast to his co-star, who we will talk about, don't worry, he has at least 3 upcoming projects that look promising. You got one with Anya Taylor-Joy's Sacrifice, Honey Don't, which is an Ethan Coen, Trisha Cook reteaming. Ethan Coen and Trisha Cook made Drive-Away Dolls earlier this year, which was really fun, so this could be a fun thing for him to do. And then you also have him being in the next Celine Song drama with him, Pedro Pascal, and Dakota Johnson. Celine Song did Past Lives last year, which is one of the best dramas that came out. Really got me to my core. Really great stuff. So at least one of those has to be good, and they're all interesting picks. It's not just be in this action movie that's going to pay a lot of money because it's a streaming release, so do that, It's something a little more interesting. We can maybe see different sides of him that we have yet to see, or he's just going to channel what a lot of people really love about him that he hasn't really gotten to do with any of these. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is an interesting case. I have never really seen like the public perception shift on him as much as I have with like anybody else. You kind of see it in like smaller doses or like in just more niche ways. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, at one time it was looking like, man, this is the guy you want to watch. He's likable in interviews. He cares about you. He cares about the people, and he might still. But at the time, people were like, we really like him being in movies. We look forward to seeing what else he can do. And I think it just became like an oversaturation thing. He put himself out there too much, to the point where he was also producing the movies that he was being in. At first, it was kind of looking like, he'll do a big like action movie, but then he'll also do something like Pain and Gain, which is like totally unexpected from him. And some people still call that his best performance. And he'll do something fun for the kids like Moana, where they just court him to be in that. Nowadays, you know, if he's in a movie, more than likely he has to also produce it. And more than likely also he will be playing a version of the same character he's always been playing. That's kind of part of like, you know, him picking his own roles, having this like team with him that is like trying to create this sanitized, safe image. And I think a lot of people have gotten really bored with that. I have gotten bored with that. It's going to be fascinating seeing that live action Moana, because I feel like as a vocal performance, he did so fantastically as Maui. But now that he's going to be like physically in the film and he's producing it as well, so you probably won't have someone really pushing him like they need to. His live action performance as Maui, if I'm going to make a prediction, probably won't have the same kind of energy or just beloved charm that the animated version does. Now, he does have one film coming out called The Smashing Machine. It's directed by Benny Safdie, one of the Safdie bros, Uncut Gems, Good Time. Emily Blunt's also going to be in that. It's going to be distributed by A24. He's already talked about how it's a much different thing for him to be doing. It really allows him to sink his teeth into the drama and the nitty-gritty of it all. It's probably going to give a aggressive Oscar campaign. But a lot of people have looked at that like, okay, finally, he's doing something different, like prosthetics, changing his look, like we're going to see him actually challenge himself. And that movie will probably be good, and I am looking forward to that movie. That being said, whereas Chris Evans, it's looking like the majority of the projects he's got coming up could be helpful and hopeful for his career and just as us, as fans of him. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that's one project, and it's surrounded by a sea of just the same shit that's still in development, that's basically just looking like everything that we've gotten before. And like I've already said, people are kind of sick of it. So Red One is just another Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson vehicle for some of these people. Obviously, there was a report that was floating around, still is, where they were saying he was 7 to 8 hours late to work for this movie, and some days he would never show up. He also pisses in bottles. Now, there was a GQ story that did come out recently where they tried to Jake Kasdan, the director of not just Red One, but the 2 Jumanji films they've done so far, and Chris Evans kind of saying like, yeah, but he also has to do those 3-hour workouts to maintain his physical shape, you know, so it's kind of built into the schedule. Like, we know that it's going to be a while for him to show up, so it's baked into the schedule, nothing unexpected. Jake Kasdan going as far as to say that he has never missed a day of work working with him on these 3 big movies now. They didn't refute the piss bottle thing. In fact, Dwayne Johnson did confirm that, so that's still gross. Stop fucking doing that, genuinely. Just go fucking take a piss. But I've seen a lot of like reviewers try to use this news of like, he's always late to set as like an easy punchline, which it is. It's very funny, yes. But trying to also say like, the reason why this movie's gonna be a disaster, the reason why the budget went so high is because of this. Oh my gosh, it's not only gonna flop, but wow, you're gonna really see the seams. It's gonna be this big disaster. And, you know, critics are already not liking it, as is shown by the Rotten Tomatoes score. So it was like, oh yeah, it's looking like that could be the case. I didn't really go into this expecting a big level disaster, you know, because the thing about The Rock, like I was saying, he's created this sanitized, safe image. He's playing a lot of familiar roles in them too. Most of the time, they just kind of end up in the middle for me, just like, whatever. So I did not expect a disaster going into this film, and a disaster is not what I got. Yeah, I walked out exactly what I expected to get, which is just a very middle of the road, very safe, very corporate holiday film that is, you know, trying to be a big blockbuster like a Marvel or anything else like that, in a way that does kind of ring a little cynical, but not in ways that like pissed me off. It was just kind of like, well, that's the thing also, is that you probably still could have had something with some of the story ideas here. It's not completely like, you know, write it off as like, this is just all bullshit, what the fuck are you doing? Like, there's some ideas there. There's some shreds of story threads that could have worked into a cohesive picture, or, you know, fit a larger theme, something wholesome for the whole family, and I don't think it really comes together in that way. Now, I was almost convinced maybe this will be a good movie when you have scenes with Dwayne interacting with J.K. Simmons, who is playing Santa. He also played Santa in a movie called Klaus, another streaming holiday movie, but that one is way better. Check that out. But he still does a good job playing a different version of Santa now in this. He just has like a sincerity to him, like a true tenderness. So when he's interacting with Dwayne, you know, there's something there. There is some kind of like magic with their chemistry. And maybe just J.K. Simmons is that great of an actor, but I mean, good acting is still good acting, you know? It was just, I was almost kind of convinced early on, like, this might be something. This might get me in the feels if they, play it the right way. Unfortunately, the premise of the movie is that Santa gets captured. And even when he gets captured, he's mostly asleep, barely interacting with the villain, like for a couple seconds interacting with the villain, and then he's asleep. He takes a big back seat, so now we're left with Dwayne Johnson interacting with Chris Evans. And the thing is that that's not inherently a bad pairing, I think only because Chris Evans is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I would say Jack O'Malley is not a bad character. They introduce him in a very typical way. He's like this bad boy kind of type, but he has a son, he's got a divorced wife, so he's kind of struggling. There's a part of him that kind of wants to be there for his kid. He kind of wants to be, but he's already so ingrained in like this criminal life and just kind of adopting this bad guy personality. But he's also, of course, the fish out of water type, so he's going to be experiencing this new stuff and going like, what the hell? What the shit? Oh my god. And I think Chris Evans has the personality and he has the charisma to make that watchable and very, like, just likable. I did not hate that character. I thought Chris Evans did a fine job. It is Dwayne Johnson, though, that we do have to, like, put a magnifying glass to, unfortunately. Look, I don't want to hate on this man, you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of people who will hate on him. I've made jokes about him before, too. It's totally fine. But yeah, he's just sleepwalking through this film. Like, there is nothing here where I'm like, ooh, that was great. What he's doing there, that was great. It's just everything they give him, just like flatline of a response, just a really boring performance. A character that you could swap out with almost anyone else that he's played, and there's no difference. which is weird since this is taking place in a mythological, like, North Pole scenario, but genuinely, you could take any of his other characters from most of his recent films and there would not be much of a difference. It's the same exact shit. Whereas Chris Evans has some, like, likability, and there's some chuckle-worthy moments throughout the film, too. Like, not consistent, but just every once in a while, like, okay, that wasn't too bad. The Rock, if you give him something, it's kind of just like, missed the mark. There's a point where he punches someone and he says, good tidings. A very, like, Schwarzenegger one-liner, like, quippy thing, and it was just like, God, that was lame. Like, I couldn't help but just, like, groan in the theater. It's, like, so lame. Quite a bit of bad jokes, some very obvious bad dialogue that, sometimes it feels like some of the actors are like, I can't believe I gotta say this. Okay, here we go. I would say the story itself, it doesn't start off too bad as far as, like, crafting this narrative where someone can track down where the North Pole is and kidnap Santa. But when they introduce the fact that the villain, played by Kiernan Shipka, is a witch, there's a part of me that starts to go like, well, okay, you need, like, realistic tracking technology to find, okay, maybe her witch powers don't seek out invisible dome North Pole societies. But then they reveal more about her character, like how she has, like, a past relationship with, like, Krampus, Santa's brother, and it's kind of like, okay, Krampus, they introduce him in a way where it's like, yeah, he hates his brother, whatever, they have some kind of feud. You're telling me that, like, there's no way when they were together that she didn't, like, wriggle that information out of him. They also, like, make mention too, like, we've dealt with this woman before. To, like, what capacity? To, like, how, like, to what capacity have you dealt with her before where, like, she still doesn't know, like, where to find the North Pole? Especially where it's like, your options are very limited as far as, like, it's somewhere up north, and if you look long enough, you can probably find it. So, like, do you really need, like, specifically, we need to track down the exact coordinate? What started off as, like, not a bad idea to rope in, like, the tracker character, and, like, okay, we kind of, if the villain was, like, someone like in Fat Man, the Mel Gibson movie, where it's just, like, a angry kid sends a bounty hunter, that wouldn't be a bad idea, but then they work in this mythological magic shit and other, like, backstory stuff, and it's like, well, now it's kind of crumbled apart, and really, at the end of the day, you just needed to get a regular guy involved in the action, and you need to make it feel like he has some personal stake in this. Like, if it's kind of his fault that Santa got kidnapped, that works in some kind of character way, but it's very flimsy. Like, it seems like they worked out some stuff first, and then when it came to, like, the villain and the villainous plot, a lot of that stuff came after the fact. It's very poorly developed. Like, you really start to think, like, man, they didn't know where the North Pole was or anything about, never been, but a lot of their plan depends on them knowing, like, the ins and outs, the secret tunnels, everything. How? You know what I mean? Like, how did they overtake this, And Kiernan Shipka, who is a great actress, unfortunately, they have given her a character that is just so weak. And this could have been a really great spotlight for her, you know what I mean? Like, show what she can do in a bigger movie like this, a bigger audience. And unfortunately, this character is just so lame. The villain, who is not threatening, not scary, even when they do some more visual effects stuff later, it's like, I don't care. Unfortunately, I don't care. It's kind of hard to think of, like, how much of a threat she is to, like, the world, when the world itself it feels very lame. I've heard some people say, like, man, this is some of the best world building that I've seen recently. I don't know how many of those are industry plants. But I mean, I want to give some credit, like, you know, they do try to work in, like, some interesting rules and tech stuff in this magical, mythical society thing. But, like, as far as, like, the regular world, there's certain things about that, like when Dwayne Johnson's walking around making Hot Wheel toys turn into real cars out in the open, nobody stops and is like, what the hell? You know, it's out in the open and nobody notices. The villain doesn't really have a chance to, like, work enough villainous magic on, like, the people of the world to make that feel like a threat. As far as, like, some scenes they try to do with, like, Christmas magic near the end, like the joys of the holidays and opening gifts, blah, 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 like, that feels very, like, small and just minuscule in comparison. Like, it's not a movie where, like, I walked out going, like, man, I'm really feeling the joys of Christmas and, you know, the community that we all share with the magic of the holiday season, whatever the fuck. No, I didn't get that feeling at all. And I feel like if you're making a Christmas movie, you know, you kind of need that magic, you need that sincerity, that joy. And I feel like they thought they did. Like, they gave our two leads some, like, character journeys, some arcs, whatever, that, you know, seem nice. But it's like, as far as, like, tying into the overall magic of the season, it rang very hollow for me. It doesn't help, I think, the tonal clash between, like, they're trying to balance this, you know, sincerity with over-the-top big action. Like I said, this is an attempt to be like a new franchise starter. They wanna MCU up Christmas. Like, it's one thing to have, like, Dwayne Johnson attached and Chris Evans be the co-lead, but they even have Chris Morgan, who's written a lot of the Fast and the Furious movies, I think even produced some of them as well, working on this. Chris Morgan Productions is a logo on the screen. So you would think, like, okay, the action must be really impressive then. Now, I saw this movie in Dolby. I didn't see it in IMAX, which is, you know, related to the funny story that was floating around where Dwayne Johnson allegedly saw Oppenheimer in IMAX. And his only takeaway from seeing it was like, man, you know what would kill on this screen? Me in Red One. Now I gotta go work out in the gym for 15 hours. So I didn't see it in IMAX, but I did see it in Dolby, which is a great theatrical experience to have, seeing something in that theater, especially if it's a really great movie. That being said, the action fucking sucks. There are so many scenes where, like, it's, like, in darkness and snow is, like, falling, like, sideways, like, people are going fast, so it's just flying all over the place, and it's hard to fucking see anything. Like, they have shot this and lit this in a way where I'm like, God, what the fuck is even happening right now? It's edited too fast. There's so many points where, you know, they've composited The Rock into a, like, fully visual effects shot, like green screen. It looks awful. And shots where just they completely replace the actor, whether it's him or Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons, whatever. And it's just, you're watching a shot with a CGI body doing something that they probably could have, like, shot practically in some way, shape, or form. They probably could have had a better blend, but they didn't, and it looks fucking terrible. The action, it goes too big to the 2 points where it's like, okay, The Rock is not necessarily human. He can maybe survive or do some things like this. It doesn't look great, but as far as, like, what he can do, sure. Chris Evans is a regular guy, though, and there are points where he gets flung and hits his back on something a couple times where I'm like, God, he should be shattered. He should be paralyzed. Fuck. But no, he's good. He's all good. That's the Fast and the Furious logic, after all. And like I said, you know, action idea, there's a scene where they fight some snowmen, which is, like, it's not inherently bad. That's also a scene where, like, the visual effects I thought looked pretty good. But I wish they were able to maintain that level of fun and creativity with everything. Everything else just seems like they're trying to obscure what the actual image is. There's quite a bit of, like, bad visual effects in this. I don't just mean in the, like, as far as, like, actors interacting with these things. And it's like, God, something looks very off here. You know, I think they really wanted to highlight that polar bear character, Garcia, very much. He's not, like, don't expect him to be like a Groot tagging along or anything like, or like King Shark. Like, he's not like a James Gunn CGI character who you love and, you know, you're glad they stuck around for the majority of the plot. Barely in it and, you know, barely a character. And I don't think it would be so bad if they didn't also have, in contrast, a really impressive Krampus creature design. Like, when you go to Krampus's lair at one point in the film and you have everyone in prosthetic makeup, you have different costumes, it looks fantastic. And the guy playing Krampus is so much fun. It's like, wow, this is, in every Dwayne Johnson movie, I feel like there's something where I'm like, that was good. Like Black Adam, it was Dr. Fate. I was like, I fucking love that guy. You know, so there, every once in a while when you watch a Dwayne Johnson movie, there's at least something or some actor where you're like, I do like this. Krampus is that in this movie for me. So you have this, like, admittedly impressive practical effects work put into this one segment, but then everything else is, you know, the elves, the polar bear, the reindeer, it's all CG. Not that you can't ever use CG, but the blend is not working. Like, it's not a good blend of both of these things. It just looks really impressive in one area, and then it looks really off or bad. Like, it doesn't really get to, like, great. It's just kind of like acceptable to really awful. That's the levels of the CG here, and it's mostly in the lower end. So overall, it's just another Dwayne Johnson movie for me, as far as I can see. You know, it has its impressive elements. You have people putting in work to try to create something good, and it's really relying on like the strengths of your leading man, of the comedy, of the actual action sequences and the storytelling to just make some of these other technical things and these other ideas really sing. And unfortunately, this is a Dwayne Johnson project that did not meet those expectations. It's so weird because this is the guy who made those two Jumanji movies, Jake Kasdan, and I do enjoy those. I haven't seen The Next Level since theaters, but Welcome to the Jungle I've rewatched quite a bit. And I think those movies are pretty consistent as far as quality. They're decent, fun, you know, solid family films. And Dwayne Johnson and the entire cast of that, you know, they play against what their public personas usually are, so it's a bit more fun and the comedy works a bit more in those. It's just kind of baffling that they've taken that guy and they've now put him in this, where Dwayne Johnson is doing the same thing he usually does, and, you know, now the action sucks and it's too big. Too much over-reliance on visual effects and focusing up on, you know, corporatizing, militarizing the North Pole mythological society thing. And it's like, man, the magic of Christmas has nothing to do with corporate, by the way. Like, that's why so many, like, not just holiday movies, but like family movies, corporate is like the villain because they're boring, they're lame. It's all about real magic, you know, the things you can't quite explain, but it captures like this whimsy and wonder that, you know, will really fuel the imaginations of kids. This is fucking lame. I can't speak for every kid though. You know, the theater I saw this in had a couple families and they did laugh at some parts that were intended to be laughed at. And I don't have a good like finger on the pulse as far as like, you know, tracking how these families react when they leave, what their minds are thinking. But it did seem like they liked it, maybe? I don't know. I do not expect this to be something that really sticks with people, though. Like, even if they walk out going, like, it was enjoyable, I just feel like, you know, true magic of the season, true movie magic, let's take Christmas out of it, true movie magic, especially catered around families, will shine through and be remembered more so than just whatever Dwayne Johnson is attempting to seem really cool. I made a video back in 2019 where the joke was me going through his IMDb page looking at his upcoming projects, not just him as an actor, but as a producer. I call him a workaholic, and it's a funny thing, whatever. I think the video's a little dated. Like, there's some things, like, if I did it now, I could probably do a little bit better, but I think overall, though, there's some things that I still laugh at. That being said, there's one thing about it that I wish I pushed a little bit more so than just workaholic. It just seems like the guy is desperate. You know, he's desperate to still be on top. He's desperate to still be at that height of fame he was when he was really getting started in films and people were really noticing, like that 2012, 2013 era. You know, he replaced Brendan Fraser for Journey 2. People didn't think that was so bad, or at least they didn't dislike it as much as Journey to the Center of the Earth. They thought he was good in that. He was in a, you know, better G.I. Joe sequel, and he was in the Fast and the Furious movies, Fast 5, at a point where the franchise was heading in a pretty positive direction as far as like fans and critics' response to it. So people were really loving Dwayne Johnson, and I feel like he's always searching for that like height of popularity again, like those couple of years where people were really into him and he really justified why he could be the highest paid actor working. Now it seems like he's always trying to justify it by starting up new franchises. I'm going to Netflix, I'm going to Amazon. Before James Gunn comes in, you know, like he saw the power vacuum over at DC and tried to carve a piece out of that. You know, he's trying so many different things. He just created a deal with Disney. He's still working with Disney. It's just too much. It's too much, and I don't know if it's stretched him thin, and that's why he's just so boring in these movies. I think it's just he's not challenging himself. He's not doing what these other like great action stars have done before. Say whatever you want about like an Arnold or Sylvester Stallone or, you know, any of those guys, but you know, they work with filmmakers that have ideas. You know, maybe they are a producer on it just so they can get the project going. But I feel like the best of those actors, or at the very least when they were in the best parts of their career, they did not like try to get so creatively involved where they just washed away any chance of them like really making themselves known, like showing people what they could do as far as like an action star, or even as a dramatic performer, anything like that. And The Rock is just like, he's got the Benny Safdie movie. That's it. But it's interesting how that one kind of came up, like kind of after this one completed shooting, or like around the same time, when it seemed like maybe he was starting to realize people are kind of sick of this. Maybe they want something a little different. But that being said, you know, you still have these other projects you are committed to because, you know, you dug this hole yourself. So we'll see how it goes in his career. This is unfortunately not a good addition to his film library. It's just, you know, another Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson boring vehicle that some people will see, but because of the $250 million budget will probably flop in the long run. So we'll see. Like, it's one thing to like release it mid-November and think maybe we'll have some legs throughout the holiday season. That's $250 million fucking dollars. The estimates are not looking good as of me recording this. And also, you have Glicked next week, Gladiator and Wicked, and you also have Moana 2 right around the corner. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is coming, the Lion King Mufasa movie is somewhere. Like, you have these other movies coming out that people are pretty excited for and are looking like they're gonna make a lot of money. I don't see how Red One stands much of a chance of breaking even compared to all of those. I guess stranger things have happened, but if I'm a betting man, knowing what I know about The Rock's career, I feel like people are tired of him enough. I'm gonna give Red One a C. It's just very middle of the road. Like I said before, I don't feel very strongly negative about this, but not enough positively where I can like try to defend it from people who are saying like, it's a disaster outright. It's just very bland. It's very mediocre. Actors who can do better and have done better are given really weak material. They try to make it shine through, but at the end of the day, you can only fight the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson corporate machine for so long. But if you've seen Red One, leave your thoughts down in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.